Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us here. We have a major update on Hurricane Beryl. We're learning just about 10 minutes ago. Hurricane Beryl has strengthened from a Category 4 hurricane to a Category 5 hurricane. The National Hurricane Center in their Hurricane Beryl Advisory 14 saying Beryl becomes a potentially catastrophic Category 5 hurricane in the eastern Caribbean, expected to bring life-threatening winds and storm surge to Jamaica later this week here. Also, Colin McCarthy, who watches these storms, saying the sun is setting on monster Category 5 Hurricane Beryl, rewriting history tonight as the earliest Category 5 Atlantic hurricane on record. Okay, so I want to put this up as well. This is our XRAD weather system at the moment. You can see there the track of Beryl off the coast of Puerto Rico at the moment, and you can see its trajectory over the next week here, just to give you a sense of the strength of this storm and how early this is. Atlantic hurricane season begins June 1st. We had our first named Atlantic storm in Alberto. Alberto did not reach hurricane level strength. And then Beryl. Beryl is only the second named storm of this Atlantic hurricane season. We're only a month in. It's July 1st. And so far, records being broken tonight. Beryl becomes the first and earliest Category 5 storm of the Atlantic hurricane season ever, coming on July 1st. So this is quite something here. We want to take the opportunity to listen in to some of our Fox weather folks about this story, about how Beryl, the trajectory of it, the strength of it, the wind, the rain it is bringing, what to expect with Beryl going forward into this week. It's only Monday, but now, as of about 15 minutes ago, it is a Category 5 storm, packing winds of up to 160 plus miles per hour. Let's watch.
I'm Fox weather meteorologist Haley Meyer. This just into the Fox Forecast Center. Hurricane hunters have found that Hurricane Beryl is now an extremely rare and extremely dangerous Category 5 hurricane. It's now the earliest ever in the calendar year that we have seen a Category 5 develop in the Atlantic Basin. Let's get into the latest statistics, as this is a historic update that we've seen from the NHC. Now at that Category 5 status, at landfall was a Category 4. The wind speed now up to 160 miles per hour. This is just speaking to how crucial it is to have the hurricane hunters flying in and out of the storm and its center to get the real-time data. That pressure still continuing to drop, 938 millibars, with that movement at west-northwest at 22 miles per hour. Jamaica is that next island that could potentially see some impacts, as well as Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Here's what we're looking at from what has changed from the 8 p.m. advisory to the 11 p.m. advisory. At 8 p.m. they said 155 miles per hour for that wind speed, going up from 150 and bumping that up even further to 160. The millibar pressure remaining somewhat similar at 938, but the 938 dropped from what we saw earlier into the day. So we're showing some intensification of this particular storm, and that was forecasted to happen for Hurricane Beryl, as it still has fairly conducive conditions for the next few hours or so for continued development. Here are the tropical alerts. Jamaica is the one spot we want to focus on right now, as it is within the cone of where that center of low pressure could come. Now, they're expecting to see the hurricane force wind gusts begin on around Wednesday morning and afternoon. So truly Tuesday is the last little bit that they have to make those storm preps. The island of Hispaniola for the southern end of Haiti and into the Dominican Republic, tropical storm warnings are in effect. And this is just showing you why the cone, it's important, but it's not the only thing you need to look at when we are tracking tropical systems, because this could be a potentially life-threatening even for folks out in Haiti and into the Dominican Republic, expecting a heavy downpour of rain. And with a lot of the mountainous terrain we see on some of these Caribbean islands, that's a problem with flash flooding and impacts for areas that live on those drainage basins. Here's that forecast track. This is the cone. Where is it going next? Going to remain in the Caribbean, and it is expected to weaken. We are seeing some strengthening right now, but it is supposed to weaken by Wednesday into the evening, 110 miles per hour as it approaches Jamaica. Thursday evening, 90 miles per hour, and then it heads towards the Yucatan. So spots like Cancun, into Belize, that's where we could see potentially a hurricane or a tropical storm that would be Beryl nearing the area. There is some forecast uncertainty, though, as to where this storm will go. We have some steering mechanisms that we'll get to in a second. Here's what it looks like on enhanced satellite. Fairly annular in its presentation, which means almost like a donut or a tire. We're not necessarily seeing these classic outer rain bands. This is a somewhat smaller storm, but the impacts have been very potent. The hostile wind environment, not really there. It's moving in a low wind shear profile, lots of moisture, and warm water is definitely a tick mark here as well. This system shattering records here. It beats Emily as the earliest formed storm. Emily was back in 2005, and for record's sake, 2005 was the same year as Hurricane Katrina. Now, that's not to say we're going to see a Katrina-esque storm impact the United States, but that threshold could be there as we get later on into hurricane season. This truly is an unprecedented thing to have happened in the Atlantic Basin, especially where this particular storm Beryl formed. The forecast uncertainty remains once it gets past the Yucatan Peninsula. Depending on where that high pressure system sits over the central U.S., if it slides a little farther out towards the east, that would drag this storm system in towards the Gulf of Mexico, potentially making impacts to the Texas coastline or the Louisiana coastline. So we still have a lot of ways to go to track out Hurricane Beryl. Now, as I mentioned, becomes the earliest Category 5 hurricane on record, and Emily was the only other storm coming close. It formed on July 11th, but became a Category 5 on July 17th. So it beat it by right around 15 days or so. It's also potentially one of the furthest south Category 5 hurricanes ever on record. Hurricane Matthew formed at 13.3 north, so not quite beating that record, but coming very, very close. It had the record for the strongest June hurricane ever, beating Audrey in 1957. Earliest Category 4 on record before Beryl was Dennis, also in 2005. The records and the superlatives for this storm just continue to be shattered. And this just begs the question, what are we going to see as we get into September, which is, climatologically speaking, peak hurricane season? We'll be there weathering the storm with you in the coming months.